All right,
Am I?
everybody, welcome to the daily debate for 30th October. Today's motion on the floor is that the veto system in the United Nations should be abolished or reorganized. Uh, just to go over the rules, we will have the opposition and proposition giving their opening speeches for 3 minutes each, and then 1 minute of cross questioning. So, is the proposition ready to take over? Is the
Yes,
proposition
sir.
ready? All right, so you
Yes, sir.
can begin.
I will say,
Sir, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Am I opposition or proposition?
Swaraj, you said that you would be spectating. Do you want to participate right now? Because uh, are
Yeah,
you
I
ready with your
can.
content?
Yeah.
All right, we have an odd amount of members, so what I'm going to do is, of course, outbalance one. Uh, Swaraj, would you be in proposition or opposition?
I can be proposition.
All right, so we now have two proposition speakers. So we will go with Anna's speech followed by Swaraj's speech. Okay, so Anna, you can start.
So, just just one thing.
Yes.
Considering that Swaraj just joined in right now, let it be proposition, opposition, and then proposition.
Yeah. We will, all right.
Prop.
Okay, so Anna followed by Pranath, then followed by Swaraj.
sir,
Okay.
may I begin now?
Yes.
I'll begin myself on the count of three, two, and one. Honorable judges, respected chair, and my fellow debaters. The United Nations was born in 1945 out of hope, tragedy, and the ashes of war. But today, nearly 8 decades later, the same organization is trapped in its own bureaucracy, paralyzed by politics and failing the very people it was created to protect. If the United Nations cannot act when the humanity needs it most, what purpose does it serve? I stand firmly for the motion because the UN, as it exists today, it is neither united or effective. It must be completely reorganized or abolished and rebuilt from scratch. Firstly, the UN structure is outdated and unequal. The world of 1945 no longer exists. Yet, the Security Council still gives absolute veto power to five nations: the United States of America, Russia, China, the UK, and the France. The five countries control the fate of 188 others. In fact, between 1946 to 2023, the veto has been used over 300 times, blocking humanitarian acts, peacekeeping missions, and resolutions, even during genocide, war, and famine. The veto power acts like a gridlock. The veto power has paralyzed the global action over Russia. For example, if we dive deep into the statistics, Russia vetoed Ukraine resolutions in 2022. China blocked resolutions of Myanmar in 2021. The US often vetoes on Palestine-related resolutions. Secondly, the UN has become a bureaucratic giant with very little accountability. It spends billions of dollars every year. Yet, according to several internal audits, nearly 30% of its resources are lost to administrative overhead. The same organization that speaks of transparency has been repeatedly accused of corruption, sexual abuse, scandals about by peacekeepers, and political manipulation in its own programs. Where is the justice when the peacekeepers themselves violate peace? Thirdly, global challenges have changed and the UN has not. Cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, climate migration, these are the real front lines of the 21st century. Yet the UN still debates in the same slow Cold War style committees, producing non binding resolutions that have real. So, reform We could reform in the way to expand the Security Council at India, Brazil, Germany, Japan, South Africa, the G4 nations as the permanent members, or limit or reform the veto power, replace it with two-third majority override system, or restrict use in
You're overdue.
humanitarian.
You're overdue. All right. So the chair thanks the speaker. Now proceeding with the opposition speaker.
Yes, sir. Sir, I'll start on my self count of three, two, one. Sir, we need to understand right on the burden itself of this motion. It has two parts basically. First, the veto system itself, and second, whether it should be abolished or reorganized. And sir, all of this debate that we are going forward here needs to be focused upon this instead of going different paths and different angles, as seen in by the first speaker itself. Now, sir, talking about the veto itself, sir, we need to understand that this isn't just random. Article 27 of the UN Charter, it clearly states that decisions on non-procedural matters shall be made by an affirmative vote of 9 members, including the co-occurring votes of all 5 permanent members. Sir, this was established in 1945, and there's a specific reason for that, which the opposition side is completely forgetting. Now, sir, directly coming to the rebuttal part itself, the opposition talks about abolishing the veto like it's some simple thing. But, sir, what they're completely missing is the reality at the San Francisco conference in 1945. The US Senator Tom, he told the delegates questioning the veto right, and he said it very clearly. You may go home and you and say you defeated the veto, but you can also say we tore up the charter. They tore up his he tore up his copy and the draft charter. Sir, this wasn't no threat, this was reality. The big five made it clear at that conference that it was either the UN charter with veto or no charter at all. Now, sir, the opposition argues that veto is blocking important resolutions. They might talk about Syria and Russia vetoing rights, right? But sir, what they don't understand is what would happen without the veto system itself. Without it, sir, the UN would pass resolutions for military interventions that no major power was actually willing to enforce on the ground. These resolutions, sir, would be just on paper that nobody follows, just empty words. Now, sir, directly coming to the practical side of things, the opposition wants to abolish or reorganize the veto, right? But, sir, Article 108 of the UN Charter requires that any amendments must be ratified by all permanent members of the Security Council. Sir, do you see the problem here? To remove the veto, you need to approval from the same 5 countries who have the veto. This is basic catch-22 situation. The opposition is asking for something that is basically impossible without P5 approval themselves. Now, sir, let's address the historical part. Back in 1945, sir, the world has just finished the World War II. The veto wasn't created to oppress smaller nations, sir. It was created specifically to make sure the major powers with actual military and economic power would stay in the UN. Without this, sir, the P5 wouldn't have joined the organization, and we wouldn't have any global structure at all. Now, sir, the opposition would talk about Rwanda and Bosnia genocides and how the Security Council failed, right? But so they forget that failure in Rwanda wasn't because of the veto. The failure was because no country was willing to send troops on the ground. The veto didn't prevent that decision. Lack of political will did. That is a very different thing, sir. We need to understand that. Now, so directly coming to the practical question again, if you abolish the veto, what stops any random majority from passing resolutions that major powers won't enforce? Sir, the power of UN resolutions come from the fact that they have been backing from countries controlling major military power. Without the votes, without the veto, sir, these resolutions became meaningless papers that nobody follows. Now, sir, Ukraine, for that example, Russia vetoed the draft resolution on February 25, 2022 that criticized its invention, right?
Pranam,
But the opposition didn't mention is that General Assembly, sir, concluding, sir, that General Assembly passed a resolution instead of using the Uniting for Peace mechanism. Sir, the system already has alternatives when the Security Councils get stuck. This system is already reorganizing itself without destroying what it's built on. Sir,
all
to
right,
wrap up in
speaker,
this
you are
conclusion, the
already
opposition's
30 seconds
proposal.
overdue.
Thank you, sir. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so the chair thanks the speaker. Now proceeding with the proposition second speaker. Swaraj, you can begin.
Yeah, just a second. Okay, cool. I'll be starting in three, two, one. Go. Now, when we look at the motion, we'll have to point out what they're trying to tell us here. Three things. First of all, they told us the fact that shall be a reason, and thereby there are 9 reasons behind this, and thereby there are 9 countries that have already been embedded in the UN Charter, right? This in itself is a logical fallacy, ladies and gentlemen, because if something which had been happening from years and years ago is something which is simply not true, pal. This could be correct and this could not be morally and prudentially wrong. They fail to understand the fact that we as a house are bringing a change which comes from you going ahead and trying to put a policy in the first place. And onto our side, the policy, that is when true change comes, which I would be expanding in my arguments even further. Before I move on to my major rebuttals panel, I like to move on to my first and the foremost argument, which is about how global democracy and equality is onto our side of the paradigm. Why? Ask me why. Because UN Charter, as they also asserted, in itself says, and I quote, "Sovereign equality of all its members should be there in the first place," right? So that in itself is a contradiction, because now the concentration of power is only within the 5 members with this very norms which have been set by the UN Charter in itself of 5 countries span, right? So them by contradicting their own UN Charter's very major stance, we prove that stance is null and void in this debate, right? But then secondly, pan, who are the stakeholders, the people here? But now what is happening is, we look at the reality, we see that US is going ahead try to protect Israel, but what about the countries that are against Israel? Then Israel has a very very big right hand to in itself of US being there, right? So that is a very very big argument if we look at it, right? Now the second rebuttal here would be that how they said that UN would pass military. The first part of this rebuttal is how US would essentially onto our side of the houses, how US was go ahead and try to pass military when there is no substantial value in terms of the fact that when there is no concentration of power in that terms, so then US would not be able to comply to it to pass military onto our side of the paradigm. They completely failed to understand. But then thirdly, panel, they also told you that in 1945 military power on, and quote unquote the word, they told you that only these 5 countries have these official military powers to be noted, right? I would like to take a break here, because them by only considering the major 5 powers here being the only military power, challenge, and I mean contradict, and I mean question the other countries that have military, but then they are not essentially going ahead and trying to even consider them in the first place. I would like to ask this to everybody in the house at large today. Do these only 5 countries comprise of actual militaries as they have been asserting? No, it is simply not the case, which they time and again fail to understand, which makes us extremely proud to propose.
All right. So the chair thanks the
Hello,
speakers.
sir. Am I audible? Hello, 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 hello.
Yes, yes,
Hello,
yes. You are audible.
hello, sir. Sir, just give me
Yes.
1 minute. I'll be just back in 1 minute.
All right. So considering we have only 10 minutes left in the meeting, so can the proposition prepare the questions for the opposition? In the meantime, he's coming back. Yes, Ahana, you have raised your hand
I was actually asking when will the POI round will begin for 1 minute.
right now, just when he gets back.
Hello, sir.
Yes. All right.
Okay, sorry,
So,
sir. There was an important call. Yes, sir.
all right. So, the proposition can start with the questions right now.
Sir,
Ahana and
may I
Swaraj.
begin?
Yes.
My question is for Pranad. If the veto power truly prevents nuclear war, Why are the same five nuclear powers also the world's biggest arms dealers?
Sorry, what?
If the veto power prevents nuclear war, why are the same five nuclear powers which are basically P5 also the world's biggest arm dealers?
Okay, so okay, ma'am. The basic fact is that, okay, so the basic criticism, firstly, nuclear was never mentioned entirely in my speech, so therefore the question itself becomes irrelevant. Secondly, ma'am, we need to understand that I never in my speech stated that veto is perfect and would prevent nuclear wars, right? We need to understand this. The major thing why the veto is there because, sir, be it let's say the major argument being that let's say XYZ country vetoes a resolution, etc. Right? But ma'am, we need to understand that without the veto system itself, UN would pass resolutions on military intervention that would have no major power and no major country which was actually willing to enforce it on the ground. Therefore, sir, the resolutions which the veto would have, it itself would be a paper that nobody follows and it would be just empty words, sir. Therefore, the resolutions would itself become pointless without the veto system itself, sir. Thank you.
All right. So considering there are two speakers from opposition, Swaraj, do you have any questions?
No, I think generally the other speaker would ask me now because proposition has already asked a question.
Sir, the opposition wouldn't be having any POIs.
All right.
Why
The
so? Why is
opposition
that?
won't ask any POIs.
Sir, are follow-ups allowed?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, sir. Okay, if according to you, you never mentioned the fact that it could prevent nuclear wars, but you are talking about some military intervention, then why should 1.4 billion Indians or 1.2 billion Africans or 650 million Latin Americans have no voice in final decision? That is not global governments, that's global elitism. How will you defend that?
Ma'am, ma'am, could you please again just repeat your entire question because that was too long. And ma'am, we need to understand that follow-ups aren't usually this long, right?
Yes,
And
please try to
considering,
keep.
sir, considering that my previous answer was satisfied, and I believe my answer was satisfied, and I hope the executive board, as in you, would have noted that answer. Therefore, sir, no follow-up should be allowed. But still, considering that you as the chair are allowing follow-ups, it should be concise, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, generally, please try to keep your follow-ups limited to like 10 seconds. But anyways, the chair had recognized the question because I think it did have scope to be answered. So, could you please repeat the question in 10 seconds, like really fast?
Could I just say it in a concise manner?
Yes, yes, please.
So basically, like what you're saying is that the five major powers are like the votes. So basically, they are also like, how do I explain this? They are not letting any other voice raised or any other voice being answered. That's my point. Like other countries are not represented well. That's global elitism, like dominance.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. I'm truly understand your question, ma'am. We need to first understand that the speaker one itself of the proposition should first read and learn, actually do more research on Article 27 of the UN Charter. It clearly states that decisions on non-procedural matters shall be made an affirmative vote of 9 members, including the co-occurring votes of all permanent members, ma'am. So regarding your truly criticism which you provided to me as the speaker that no that only P5 voices are being heard, therefore it is a basic false argument and a factual inaccuracy itself, ma'am. This was this clear article in UN Charter itself, ma'am.
Mm,
And ma'am, this was specially established in 1945, and there's a specific reason for that, which the opposition side is completely forgetting. Right, ma'am? We need to understand this. Thank you.
Could you explain the Article 27 in
All
detail or
right.
in the sim?
I did not permit the follow-up. Anyways, considering that we have only 2 minutes and 30 seconds remaining, I'm going to just give you guys your feedback and then announce the winner. All right. So starting with the proposition, I think Swaraj already left. So Ahana, uh, you did not address one critical point of the question whether veto should be abolished or reorganized. I don't think you gave enough time to that. And next, your speech wasn't connected. It had logic, it had statements, but your story wasn't connected throughout the story. I think your argument did
They
not come
weren't
out as
like
a
interrelated
yes,
as in the
interrelated.
points weren't interrelated.
You did
But they
not
were
continue
relevant, but
one
they
point.
weren't.
Yes, they were relevant,
Sorry,
but you
sorry,
need
go on.
to uh, state it in such a way that it sounds like an argument and not a bunch of points. That is what I'm trying to say. And for Pranath, so obviously one bit of feedback. You went over 30 seconds more than your permitted time. I really did like that your speech was sprinkled with logos. You had great content and great research. And yeah, even though you were really fast, you went over by like 30 seconds, which is a great deal. And another point I wanted to say was that you did not make any POIs, even though your speech had plenty of rebuttals. But that is just personal feedback, not relevant feedback by the chair. All right. So,
Thank you, sir.
do you all have any questions for me? Anything that you want to ask, like with the feedback that I gave you?
Sir, you are a great chairperson, sir. Thank you.
Oh, all right. Thank you for that. Uh, and also, I wanted to talk about your questions, Anna. Your questions were really long because generally we try to keep them limited to 20 seconds. And considering that we had even less than time we would have in a normal condition, you kept it really long and